The one and only Jackson Hinkle, the smartest in America, is on the line now. US broadcaster, podcaster, commentator extraordinary. Jackson, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. It's been too long. What do you make of the Rubicon that was crossed in Florida this very week?
Well, thanks for having me on the show again. And what happened at Trump's private residence in Mar-a-Lago was absolutely frightening. And what's been even more frightening is the fact that you have so many people who consider themselves to be on the progressive left in the United States who are coming out and defending the weaponization of the FBI against the former president, something that's never been done, the weaponization of the Espionage Act against the former president, while they're similarly and simultaneously complaining about the weaponization, rightfully so, of the Espionage Act against Julian Assange. I mean, that should be condemned. But why is it okay when they use it against Donald Trump? Why didn't they ask for these documents? Why didn't they subpoena Donald Trump for these documents? They're going in to his private residence, going through, Melania Trump's clothes and stuff like that. You were talking about that earlier. It's really incredible. And first they were talking about, they had to go get these documents because of an illegal declassification. And then the story turned into, well, we have to go to Trump's private residence because of nuclear codes. And then the story turned into, well, we had to go in there because, of the documents pertaining to the Iran deal. Now, sources are saying that they were seeking information relating to the United States Air Force training Ukrainians on American drones. So what's the real story here? It seems like no one really knows why they went in there. No one really understands why they had to do this. I think the underlying truth of it all is they're trying to pin something on Trump relating to January 6th and make it so, if he does run for president in 2024, he's going to have to pull a Eugene Debs and run from prison, which there is precedent for in the United States. But I think if the deep state wants to keep Donald Trump out of office, for what reason, I don't know. Apparently, he poses some sort of a threat to the deep state. I don't think he posed a massive threat to the deep state, but I think they're going to end up turning him into a martyr. And, there's going to be an even larger amount of public support for Donald Trump and, what he stands for, his character, than if they had not done this. So it's really incredible to watch.
Let's deal with the issue you raised en passant there, that what is it that is so frightening about Donald Trump? Certainly his words, his rhetoric was sometimes fierce, but his actions did not match up to his words. He didn't drain the swamp. As a matter of fact, he appointed some of the worst bottom dwellers of the swamp to his inner circle, his cabinet. He surrounded himself with swamp dwellers. So what are they worried about?
It's a good question. I've talked about this extensively with Colonel Douglas Macgregor on my show. And Colonel Douglas Macgregor was Trump's senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense. And from what I understand in Macgregor's personal dealings and his experience with Donald Trump, he basically has put it as such that Donald Trump was not a good butcher. And the first time he said that, I was thinking to myself, what do you mean he wasn't a good butcher? Well, if you're going to be a good president, you have to be willing to be a good butcher and get rid of the people that surround you that are part of that swamp and are either trying to bring you down or lie to you. You think about during the Kennedy administration, it's, of course, the Dulles brothers, and we saw who won that battle. In Donald Trump's case, you're right. He did appoint a lot of these swamp deep state figures to his administration. He thought that he could trust anyone who had, a certain amount of stars on their chest. And if they were a highly respected military official, I think he learned, far too late that wasn't the case. Donald Trump was tricked when it came to Syria. He was, lied to when it came to Iran. I mean, you had Donald Trump saying things like we had to pull out of the Iran deal because the Iranians were working with, Sunni fundamentalists. The guy was fed so much false information. It's incredible. And he really didn't think to check any of this. And then when he did, learn from his associates and from the people that were around him that maybe had some good points to make about all of this stuff, about what the deep state was doing, What did he do? Well, he went idly by and he tried to work with these deep state figures. He didn't get rid of them. He didn't get rid of John Bolton quick enough. He didn't get rid of Mike Pompeo. He didn't get rid of the people that were doing the most damage around him. Okay. And in many cases, he escalated tensions with our adversaries, right? He said that he was a good businessman, wanted to have good relations. And sure, he didn't start a war with Ukraine. Sure, he didn't almost start a war with China. But there was a lot of damage that he did do. So, I have to look at the situation now as these figures are trying to prevent him from running for office again. And I think, to be quite honest, though Donald Trump doesn't pose an existential threat to the deep state, there is at least somewhat of a threat that he poses when you compare him to figures like Joe Biden, who go along with everything that his handlers say.
Now, what are the likely moves here in your view? You made the point that Debs ran for president from prison, but of course he didn't succeed, alas. I don't think that Trump will be in prison by 2024, though he may be on his way to prison. He may well be embroiled in years of legal troubles in the hope of exhausting him, making him cry uncle. He's already facing in the New York district and in other places, Ohio, I think, the possibility of criminal charges. Might Trump appoint a surrogate? And in parenthesis, I had thought that DeSantis might be his surrogate, but DeSantis on the sofa yesterday on Fox News appeared to turn decisively against Trump with regard to this raid.
It was very interesting to see that. DeSantis has previously said that he would not run for president if Donald Trump was already running and had announced his candidacy. So we'll see if that changes. He said this. I don't know if he is going to stand by it when he sees his poll numbers as high as they are right now. But the problem with DeSantis is that it's the big elephant in the room. No one knows what this man's foreign policy is. He's surrounded by a bunch of people who are, foreign policy hawks. They're neoconservatives. They're Zionists. And I would imagine that he, given how quiet he is about the foreign policy crises that are currently unfolding, is probably not too dissimilar to the people that he surrounds himself with. Donald Trump, you talk about a surrogate. Well, of course, there's Donald Trump Jr. I mean, he's a very popular figure in the United States. Many people don't really know that much about Donald Trump Jr. They think he's just kind of a stuck-up kid of a former president, which is probably somewhat true. But if you actually listen to him talk, he's got better foreign policy ideas than his father. I think he's more ideologically inclined than his father is when it comes to these sorts of issues. It'd be interesting to see, where he stands in a presidential debate amongst all these other Republican officials if Donald Trump himself can't run. I'd probably have many disagreements with Donald Trump Jr., but if you're talking about doing the least amount of damage and the person who's going to try to restore some semblance of détente with the rest of the world, I think that he wouldn't be a bad pick. He wouldn't be the worst pick within the Republican Party.
Now, the situation's, of course, fraught with perils, Jackson. If we ever see Donald Trump in handcuffs, doing the perp walk, appearing in court on criminal charges, the already volatile and heavily armed situation in the United States could spiral uncontrollably, couldn't it?
100%. When the FBI launched this raid on Donald Trump's personal residence, what was trending on Twitter? It was the phrase civil war. And now you're hearing talks about how, Twitter might start censoring the phrase civil war and those who use it. But the thing I want to point out here is that most Americans don't want a civil war. They feel like a civil war is being waged upon us. What is America? What binds us together? It's a very diverse country. I love that. It makes for a very interesting place to live. But we're supposed to stand for a common set of freedoms and values. The same deep state that is going after Donald Trump right now is like it or not, is the same exact group of people that's trying to tell us that freedom of speech is bad and we should be cheerleading censorship. They're the same exact group of people that are saying, the Second Amendment is, innately inhuman. It's really incredible to bear witness to the unraveling of the fabric of this country. And yeah, I would have to say that if we see Donald Trump in handcuffs, if we see him going into prison, I don't even want to think about what's going to happen in this country, because that it would be unprecedented. People would be rightfully outraged and rightfully concerned about this. In any sort of just democratic society, you're supposed to be upholding the law fairly and firmly. And we know that's not the case in the United States. You don't have to search too hard to find many examples of the law being weaponized and our judicial system being weaponized against, historically many socialists, many communists. Now today we're seeing it being weaponized against the populist right. The January 6 hearings, the Russiagate scam, and now this. If recent history is any indicator, I don't see this problem solving itself, and I see it actually getting much, much worse in due time. And the social media giants are probably going to provide cover for those who are leading the charge to lock up, imprison, and vilify the populist movement, either left or right, in the United States.
Now, this may be of interest only to thee and me and cognoscenti, but I am genuinely perplexed. This is the same FBI that hounded and spied upon and maybe even killed Paul Robeson, the giants like Martin Luther King, like the nascent Black Panther movement, Black Power movement in the United States, that maybe killed JFK, that maybe killed RFK, that certainly have spied, burgled, and bugged their way through what we might call the left in America for, I don't know, half a century, 3/4 of a century. And yet, it now has a chorus of cheerleaders from people who would only a few years ago have been treating the FBI like pariahs. They would not have ever come out as cheerleaders of the feds. How do you account for that? What's the psychology behind all that, Jackson?
The psychology behind it is called Trump derangement syndrome, or blue MAGA. Some people refer to it as. Aaron Matte calls it blue MAGA. It's just so incredible to see what's happening right now. You have like leading quote unquote progressives, like for example, Nina Turner, former campaign co-chair of Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, who's coming out now, and again, they're celebrating the fact that the FBI and the Espionage Act are being weaponized to go against a dissident of the security state, of the intelligence community, and someone that doesn't even pose, I think, too much of a threat to them, but they're still going after Donald Trump, and you're 100% correct to point out that, yes, many of these exact people that are applauding this recognize that historically the FBI, the CIA, all these intelligence groups, right, they have gone after successfully the names that you've just listed, and they can point that out. They can understand that. But the fact now that they're going after Donald Trump, they're acting as hypocrites. They're saying that conservatives are completely, they're calling conservative hypocrites for being mad at the fact that they're going after Donald Trump right now. That's not how you should act. You should be celebrating and welcoming the fact that you have conservatives who maybe previously didn't understand that the security state was the beast that it is. And they're now coming around to this idea that, yes, we should defund or abolish the FBI. Yes, we should drain the DOJ. Yes, we should be really worried about the CIA and get rid of them too. It's incredible that so many so-called leftists, they describe themselves as leftists, I don't think they're leftists, are outraged about this. No, if you are cheerleading the fact that the FBI is doing this right now, if you are supportive of this, if you can't welcome conservatives who are coming around to this idea that you've held for years already, Well, you never really supported the idea of abolishing the FBI or going after the security state. You supported being a rank partisan and a Democratic Party loyalist, and that's all you're ever going to be. So it's very disappointing to see that, because we have an opportunity here in the United States like no other to unite left and right, come together, and actually achieve something for once, something very substantive. Yet partisan politics is again wedging its way into this issue and the solution to what could be something really beautiful and incredible for this country.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Jackson Hinkle, thanks for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. He's a smart guy. Follow him on Twitter